Drafting the Magic features the thoughts and opinions expressed by Christian Ilton, Erik Pessolano, and today's guest, and do not in any way reflect the views or opinions of the Walt Disney Company or any of its subsidiaries.
It has been way too long since we have done this show. I am so excited to be back with Drafting the Magic. We've got a new look. We've got the same great show, and we've got the same great co-host of mine, Erik Pessolano, coming straight off a season where he had a hot start, but ended up in the loser's bracket. I officially won that season. I'm happy about it. Erik, we're back.
We are back, Christian Ilton, and I'm so excited to get this new season underway. Yes, I had a bit of a rough patch in the back half of the first season, but I got to come out strong again like I did last year. Hopefully I can get the dub today and get a streak going, not let up over the course of this new season. We got new topics. Like you said, we got a new logo. I can't wait to get things going again.
Yeah, big shout out to Mike Maldonado for the help with the logo, doing a very good job incorporating our favorite mouse that everyone loves, but also our Erik and my extreme love for the Epcot theme park in Walt Disney World, and I think it's a really good logo, and we're really excited for DTM to start up again this year. And Erik, we talk about it all the time. The topics last year were pretty good, but this year we are going straight into it. We had to prolong the wait by talking about things where you wait. We are talking about Disneyland Resort queues, Erik.
You know, something that's overlooked, I think, a lot throughout all the resorts, and you enjoy them without realizing you're enjoying them. And then you'll go home and be like, oh, remember how we got to do X, Y, and Z while we were waiting in line? I mean, there's not very many places that can make waiting in line exciting. And I think Disney does that at all of their theme parks, certainly the ones that we've been to in the United States, but I'm sure all around the world as well. So we're going to rank the best ones, draft the best ones here at the Disneyland Resort in Southern California. So there's a lot to choose from. I think we're going to have the right guest today that's going to judge us fairly. Joining us today to kick off Season 2 of Drafting the Magic, guy who knows a little bit about the parks and a little bit about me. It's my brother, Brandon Pessolano, is here. Brandon, thanks so much for joining us on Season 2. It's the premiere of Drafting the Magic.
What a pleasure it is. Thank you both for having me. Wow. Season 2? Already?
Yeah, somehow they let us do more than just the first 20 episodes. We got renewed.
I feel like it's been a little bit, but, we've been cooped up a little bit too, so...
I'd like to just make note for everyone at home. They can't see this because we are obviously on a podcast. I am motioning up towards the official scorer's box and making the protest signal. I think that your brother being on the show, this is already under protest. No, I'm kidding. Brandon's great. He's loved the show, and I think he'll be a good guest judge today.
Oh, I thought you were honoring us by skywriting our last initial. Okay. I get it now.
Oh my god!
You were filing protests already.
Okay. Did Erik file a protest when your fiance was on, Christian, or vice versa for when Katie was on last season?
No, we didn't, because we both trusted them, and they still chose us each. So,
and if we're keeping score with family members and significant others, you actually make it 2-2 because Christian's cousin was on last season too. So this just evens.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now we're back even. I like that.
We're back even, and we are back to Drafting the Magic. I am so excited for this one. And Brandon, I know you know the queues of the Disneyland Resort quite well because you've walked around the resort at least a couple of times. Obviously, don't give us your favorites, but it's no secret. Disneyland is not known for the queues as much as Walt Disney World is, but Disneyland still has some great queues at the resort.
Absolutely, Christian. So many from throughout my lifetime. I mean, I'm still fairly young, I believe. But I've also been with the company for, going on 13 years this year. And I, like you mentioned, spent my time walking around that property just a little bit. Everything's fascinating that they do around there. everything, all the details that they put into, whether it's a restroom, like we're going to talk about today, a queue, the attractions from top to bottom. There's nothing better.
I'm still waiting on the restrooms show. We'll get there. We will get there, people. But anyway, Erik, of course, queues is on the docket for us today. And any of the queues at the Disneyland Resort, there's a bunch of attractions that we could go through. But as always, there is a special rule. Why don't you lay down the rules for us in the season premiere, Erik?
All right, here we go. This one's going to be a fairly simple one just to keep things balanced. We have 2 theme parks. We need to select from both of them. So within your first 4 picks, Christian, you and I have to select 2 from Disneyland Park and 2 from Disney California Adventure within our first 4 picks. So you cannot go to a third pick from the same park until your final selection, when, of course, you will be required to go to a third pick from a single park. But can't go 4 and 1 in this show. You have to go 3 and 2, and you got to go 2 and 2 within your first 4.
And of course, you have to have experienced the attraction, or at least walked through the queue. And even on the rides I don't like going on, I can walk through the queue. So most of these, I would say, for both of us, are eligible for pick.
I can say with certainty I have not walked through every single queue in both parks. However, the ones I have not walked through, you can see in their entirety with the naked eye just by standing near them. So I don't think I have anything to worry about there. All the big ones that I think we're going to select here today, I mean, obviously, my list, I had to have gone through all of them. But all the big ones that I think out of the 10 we're going to pick today, I can say with 99% confidence I've walked through all of them. I don't think you're going to pick something I haven't seen.
Okay, well, good. Well, how about we kick this thing off? Here we go. We are drafting the Magic Season 2 premiere, The Queues of the Disneyland Resort. And Erik, you have the first pick. Oh my gosh, here we go.
All right, I've got a little bit of a criteria that I'm looking at for my own selections. I don't know what the judge has in mind. I'm sure Brandon will let us know once we've made all of our picks what his criteria was for selection. But for me, it's got to keep you entertained. It's got to really put you in the story, and it has to serve a functionality. I don't want, I don't want just an extended queue that is just all this space. You got to do something with that extended queue. It's got to be part of the story and functional at the same time. So with that being said, the number 1 pick to kick off season 2 of Drafting the Magic, I'm headed to Disneyland Park, and I'd be stunned if anybody thought this number 1 pick would be anything but this selection. I'm taking Star Wars Rise of the Resistance at number 1 for the best attraction queue in either of the 2 theme parks here in Southern California. Even when you're standing in the extended queue portion, you still feel like you're in a galaxy far, far away. Once you get down inside the base, there's a lot more theming going on there to keep you entertained. You can hear things over the loudspeaker. Heck, even when the attraction goes down, which, historically it's going to while you're standing in there, that you're going to hear even the spiels from the cast members are different than they are at any other attraction. It's not just your cookie cutter, sorry, we're experiencing technical difficulties. No, there's been an invasion on the base, and right now we're trying to, whatever it is. I don't know the words, the verbiage word for word. I don't have the script in front of me, but you get the idea. Then you get outside, you go into that transporter. It's almost, how do you make a queue part of the ride itself? Well, Disney figured out how to do it. And then you get into the ship and just the overwhelming feeling seeing all those stormtroopers standing right in front of you. Then the way they board you. And then there's another pre-show when you're in the holding cell. I don't want to give things away too much. You can go on YouTube if you're that antsy to see it. But from start to finish, they keep you entertained the whole way. And the functionality part is they needed something that held multiple hours worth of wait times. Of course, the virtual queue kind of solved a little bit of that issue. But still, there's all that space. It serves its purpose. And it's entertaining as all heck. Give me Rise of the Resistance at number 1.
It's a good pick. It's probably the greatest. I mean, I'm not surprised that you took it number one. If you didn't take it, you all at home would have heard a very loud noise. That would have been me hitting the floor because Erik didn't take it. Brandon, what do you think of Star Wars Rise of the Resistance's cue?
One word. Wow. What an amazing cue that turned out to be. From, like Erik stated, from start to finish, and that just the experience. I do have one thing to add to your explanation of that cue, though, that really kind of made me put this really high up myself, and that was the interaction of the quote-unquote cast members with the guests, the Resistance members. Just how they force you to do what they want to do, but it's still nice. Like, I don't like being told what to do, but because you're so immersed in that story, it works perfectly. And let me tell you, there are a lot of cast members who would love to do that on a daily basis, but being able to experience that as a guest, there is just something magical about it right there. Another thing that I do like about that cue is, I don't want to give too much away, but I remember being spooked out a little bit my first time in that queue, seeing those stormtroopers all lined up and slightly moving. That was definitely a feature that was a little eerie at first. And then I realized the detail that they put into this, over the top, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that point you made there about the cast members telling everybody what to do, it's a weird feeling you get when you go in there and you almost want them to do that. And I can tell you that all the cast members who went over there and do their job, they do a great job of staying in character, and it's so easy to be commanding. Especially, the cast members over there rotate to both inside and outside sometimes. So they have the opportunity to be nice and just like a normal cast member, being a lead resistance. And then they have to switch a gear maybe the next day and have to tell you what to do and put on that mad dog face, which I think everybody's totally okay with. So that's a good point by you.
Just a little bit.
So good. One of my favorite parts of that queue is when you do see characters, not necessarily animatronics, but you do see some other characters via Disney's magic. The fact that they make it look like they have shadows when they are not physically right there, that is just, they thought of everything, and that is why, it's gonna go number one. And so Erik gets Star Wars Rise of the Resistance. Again, I think this is the third or fourth time he's actually taken that attraction in different drafts, so we'll see if it pans out for him. For my turn, I am going to go to another attraction that has a crazy, out of this world, out of this galaxy kind of theme, but it is in Disney California Adventure. Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout has to be the top of my list, and in fact, it was going to be at the top of my list if I had the first pick in this, just because of what they've been able to do. The collector's fortress that sits there now where the old Tower of Terror used to be, completely transformed. Stan Lee is in the video. I mean, come on, you can't knock on Stan Lee. They've got the movie props from a number of the different Marvel films. I know Thor Ragnarok's in there. There's a couple of other ones that actually have movie props in there, and the whole setup, Rocket escaping and then needing you to break out. It's an entire show. Even the outside where all the plants are, where the Tower of Terror's plants were, that is now known as the Gardens of the Galaxy. That's why it's going as my number one pick. An amazing queue over in Disney California Adventure. Not
stunned in the least bit that that's where you were going to go. I think my favorite part about all the items in the Collector's Fortress is the fact that they rotate them. Some, they'll put in new items every now and again, depending on which film might be, it's also a good marketing tactic. Whichever
Yes.
film is it's out on the market, or I guess nowadays, whatever Disney Plus series is out on the market, I'm sure we might see some new things once the park opens up here in just a couple of days. So that's a nice pick by you. And Brandon, what do you think about Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout?
I think that had to be his pick. Like Christian was saying, all the nods to all the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. It's a great touch for that cue line that they have going on there. I also would like to add a little touch to that as well. Not only do they have nods from the Marvel movies, but they have nods from the theme parks itself.
Yes.
And I gotta say, I think my favorite nod from the theme park has got to be Harry. The original Abominable Snowman from Matterhorn Bobsled is the biggest nod I think that they have in there that I enjoy. Throwing him up there to pay homage to what's been going on in the changes around the resort.
Yeah, Harold, definitely.
Harold, sorry, not
yeah,
Harold.
one of my favorites. Of course, I have a personal connection to Harold myself. However, he's probably my second favorite because number one is Figment. I'm a Figment guy. Always been a Figment guy. I'm not going to tell you where he is. You got to go in there and try to find it for yourself. But
yes, you do.
Harold's too. Yeah.
Eric, you know why I have a little bit of strong judgments against Figment in the past, but
we'll save that for a different show.
Absolutely.
There's some great nods to Tower of Terror in that queue, though, as well. If you look hard enough, and I mean, I won't tell you exactly where everything is, because I think part of the fun is the adventure of looking. There are some old bellhop hats hidden throughout the queue. There is some artwork that was in the lobby that is hidden throughout the queue. They did a very good job at hiding a bunch of stuff throughout there, because Tavon, the collector, has collected a ton of stuff around the galaxy, including right here on Earth and at the Disneyland Resort. So big. I'm really happy I got Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm going to be honest. Like, I was going to be hurt if I didn't. So I was going number one. I'm happy about it. And that is the first round, gentlemen.
Yeah, I find myself maybe having to shift my strategy a little bit because Guardians was on my list. I don't think that was a shock to anybody else out there. But I did have it within my first four. So now I have to make an adjustment on the fly. But my number 2 pick is still on the board, and I'm going to go with it. And I'll make my adjustment a little bit later on. But for now, I have to take what might be my personal favorite queue of all time. It's not very long. Doesn't take you a whole lot of time to get through it. You do it with a large group of people. And anytime you go underground, I mean, come on. And you have most of the attraction down there, and it's hidden that way, and you never really know it. Give me Haunted Mansion at number 2. The stretching room for me is what seals the deal. It is the most iconic pre-show at the resort. Yeah, I said it. I think it's the most iconic pre-show in the entire resort, with the stretching posters and, of course, the finale of the stretching room, and then watching everybody. And this is where you get your Disney fandom mixing in with history, is watching everybody who's been on it so many times. They know where the door's going to open up, and they all try to hurry over there. I got to be the first to get out the door and into the hallway before boarding the Doom buggies. And one thing I'm looking forward to is a little bit of a touch up that has gone on down there while we've been away from the theme parks. So I can't wait to see that once it opens up again. A few little trinkets have been added, or I guess put back down there. So we'll see how that all turns out. But give me Haunted Mansion number 2. It's my favorite attraction of all time. Christian, you know that. Brandon, you know that. Give me Mansion at number 2.
I had a feeling you were going Haunted Mansion. I was almost worried you were going to go Haunted Mansion number 1, but I think you knew you had some security in that. So, but yeah, Haunted Mansion's great. From the little rhymes that are on the tombstones scattered throughout that extended queue. And that's actually when I love the attraction the most, when there is a long line, because you really get to appreciate the detail that goes into it. When they change everything for Haunted Mansion Holiday, they add the pumpkins, but also, the hints of the rest of the holiday. I mean, they do a very good job. Brandon, what do you think of Haunted Mansion?
I love that pick. Christian, you took the words right out of my mouth by expanding on the pun names all on the tombstones throughout the mausoleum. I would like to point out, not only are there pun names, but there are also names of Disney Imagineers who created the attraction on those tombstones as well, for a little homage to them. I love that little touch. And the Holiday Mansion. As a little kid growing up, I used to dislike Nightmare Before Christmas, but growing older, I have a new fond respect for Tim Burton and his claymation movies, that's for sure. And that movie, I watch every Halloween and Christmas time now, and I love seeing all the little additions they add throughout that queue line, even through the attraction itself. It's a nice touch they have going on there.
I think it's one of the best. Like I genuinely do. And so Erik, good job. You got a great pick there, because it really is the full show. It is not a, oh, well, there's a haunted house, so let's just queue up to get to the haunted house. You really do experience straight from that gate, maybe even a little bit outside of that gate if the cast members, really into the show. And I think they do a very good job of that. So good job on your number 2 pick.
Well, thank you. I was hoping it wouldn't let me down. I was a little worried that it may not be there, but then I really, again, I know how much you love Guardians, so I wasn't going to worry about it too much. Well, what that does now is it forces me to pick 2 DCA queue at 3 and 4. So I'll see how I'm going to navigate those depending on what you do right now.
Yeah, see, the nice thing about that is that means that I get my first 2 Disneyland picks, even if I save them for the 3 and 4 pick, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Disney California Adventure again, my favorite park. Come on, we're going to go there. But I'm going to take a attractions queue that I think does a great job of detail, but it also does a great job of keeping people entertained when they knew people were going to be standing there for probably 2 hours, even 6 years after opening day. Of course, I've got to go with Radiator Springs Racers. I think the entire queue, it's set up to look like that place where they would actually go and fill up their radiators and get things going. You can hear the attraction as you're going around, but also they've really just done a great job of setting up shade, setting up the fans. I anytime when people are going to be outside in the summer at Disney, I think it's really cool when the Disney company sets that stuff up to really try to take care of the guests. And I mean, when you're coming up to the attraction, you get surrounded in that wheel. It's the best. I've got to go with Radiator Springs Racers.
So here comes maybe the first shock of this new season. I didn't have it in my top 10. Not even in my top 10.
Ridiculous.
Two reasons. One, I knew you were going to take it. That was one of the reasons why I left it out. I didn't even want to mess around with it. Guardians, I thought maybe there was a chance, but once I took Rise, I knew you were going to go there, so I had it on my list anyway. The second reason was that they put so much effort and the attraction came out so well. I feel like they neglected the queue just a little bit. I feel like it could have had a little bit more detail and a little bit more story put into it. That's just my feeling. I don't dislike it. I'll tell you that right now. I've waited in it before and it was fine. It was just fine. But I did think that there were 9 or that there were 10 attractions better as far as queues are concerned. So I left it off. I'm interested to hear Brandon's thoughts about Radiator Springs Racers.
I guess brothers think alike. I agree. The attraction is so intricate with detail, the backdrop of the mountain range. My favorite thing of the attraction in itself is the cars that they pulled from Test Track in Florida. I am not a big fan of outdoor lines. I don't like waiting in the hot sun. Misters, could do a little less of them, but I know some people like them. I do agree that the detail that Christian was talking about kind of is there. One of my favorite parts of that queue is the house with the glass bottles.
Yes.
Or the hut with the glass bottles. That, to me, is my favorite part of the queue. I don't see too much else to put it in my top 5 as well.
Whatever. I'm just gonna sit here and sulk. That, by the way, the glass bottles. If you go there at night and you have other people on the other side of the wall that are having a great time, bring your flashlight out. It looks super cool. Anyway.
I want to go full disclosure here. I had no idea Brandon didn't like outdoor queues because I don't have a problem with outdoor queues. I'm one who doesn't. I don't really care much about weather. I'm like, whatever. It's 138 degrees outside. I'll stand out here and wait for an attraction. I don't really care. But so I didn't know that. That just happened to work out in my favor, and I'm okay with it.
Whatever. Let's just move on.
I don't think the weather is the biggest the biggest factor for me, to be quite honest with you guys. I think the biggest thing for me is I think the Imagineers put more detail into a queue that's inside than they do one that's outside.
All right, that's a fair point. Let's go to round number 3. Now I am forced to go over to DCA. My next 2 picks are going to have to come from DCA. And I'm looking at my list, and I have one that I did have in my top 5 that is still available. The question is, do I stick with it? Now, I am in my head, stalling for time here, trying to debate which one I'm going to go with. But
doesn't matter. Right. You're going to get them both anyway.
Well, that's a good point. Well, I actually have 2 on my backup list, so I have to decide between them once we move on to the next one. But you're right. So I'm going to go ahead and take a cue that involves some of those misters. Well, in one particular location that Brandon was talking about there just a second ago. It is half outdoor queue, half indoor queue. It goes outdoors a lot of the time, but the reason for me taking this one has to do with a lot of the historical data that you can find out while you're waiting in the queue. You just look up to the ceiling, you can read the banners and see all the parts of an airplane and everything you ever wanted to know about aviation while you're waiting. Give me Soarin' at number 3. It's not just about the history, but also once you get down and you're getting ready to board, you really feel like you're going to board some sort of an aircraft. And, you have a pre-show video with Patrick Warburton, who I believe all of us do a pretty decent impression of that I don't think we need to do right now, but you get the idea. But, just the feeling that I'm going to go on a hang glider here in a minute. Like they really put you in the mood with the background music and the pre-show. And give me Soarin' at number 3 for my first pick from DCA.
I'm so mad at myself I can't even describe it because I pulled up my list. I didn't have it on my screen, and Soarin' is above Radiator Springs Racers. And so I am going to be kicking myself for this one for a while, especially after Brandon's review. That being said, Soarin' does have a great queue. I will get on some people's bad sides when I say I think Florida's has a better queue than California's. Just because
I agree with that.
Okay.
I agree with you.
It's 100% air conditioned. I'm just saying. Anyway, no, but I like the interactive stuff. But in Florida, you're expecting to stand there a lot longer too. So there is a lot more that's needed. Anyway, I love the queue at Soarin'. I like the changes they've made to it, especially when they went from Soarin' over California to Soarin' around the world. They did a couple of different changes, and one of my favorite parts of that as a kid when we were going. I mean, you guys were kids when around the same time as well. The disaster of the Columbia, seeing that on the TV and being afraid as a kid, and then seeing it immortalized on the walls inside that queue. That is just something that whenever I pass it, I look at that and I remember that whole thing. So they do such a great job of highlighting such amazing moments and some disasters in that queue. So very good pick. Brandon, go ahead. I know I'm already selling Erik's pick, but go ahead and sell it even some more.
Yes, minus the outside waiting part, as long as the queue is not too long at that point in the day. That queue actually made my top 5. I'll be honest with you there. And specifically for the reason that you guys have pointed out is the history of aviation. Something about that keeps you busy while you're in there. And aviation is a very, very big proponent in our world. Let's be real. And like you brought up, Christian, about the Columbia and this just space exploration in total, very big part of our history, and something about them putting more than just airplanes in that queue made it that much more special. So great pick.
I don't know, Brandon, if you remember this, but we actually saw the Columbia in person back in 2002 when we visited the Kennedy Space Center. It was in the vehicle assembly building being worked on, getting ready for that particular launch. Just not a few months, but a good amount of months. I think we were there. Yeah, we were there in
all that. Yes,
we were there July 2002, and it was getting ready to go in February of 2003, and that was something. There was a lot of hoopla around that, and it was devastating, like you mentioned, Christian. But well, I'm glad that all worked out for me here in pick number 3. So now Christian gets to turn it on and go across the Esplanade himself.
my only argument to bring down Soren's queue, as soon as you are inside, you are just in a giant tin can. And that's how I always feel when I'm in it. I would say that's probably one of the only reasons why it's not above Guardians for me, because Guardians, you've got cool stuff to look at, but you're also in it. I mean, granted, it's supposed to be a hangar, but I feel like you're just in a giant tin can whenever you go down there. So that's my thought.
And it's weird because it like breaks up the two segments of the queue, right? So you have all that history, and then you're in the tin can, and then you go to the boarding zones, and it's like, what happened in the middle there?
Yes, it's
Fun fact for you both, and I might get a lot of haters for this. That is the only part of Soarin' that I actually enjoy. I don't care for the ride. It is one of my least favorite rides in the parks. To be honest with you.
I didn't say it. You got to remember that was Brandon who said it, and not Erik.
Hey, look, I don't like breaking my neck to try to see the Eiffel Tower either. But we move on from that, all right? And we are going to go to my third pick. My third pick is going to be in the park that Walt Disney built. It is one of my favorite queues. It might be my favorite besides Rise of the Resistance, and it is based on movies that I will admit I have never seen, because I have never seen any Indiana Jones movies. But Indiana Jones, and yes, it's the pick that Erik thought I was going to take, Indiana Jones and the Temple of the Forbidden Eye. An Indiana Jones adventure has to be at one of the top spots on my list. It is remarkable. A lot of cool different things in there. You do have the truck from Raiders of the Lost Ark. You also have a package that's going to one Obi-Wan. So I'm just saying there's a little bit of a Star Wars hitch to it too. But the pre-show is a lot of fun. I would say that one is right up there with Patrick Warburton on Soarin' for ones that people will try to recite and try to mimic. And then obviously you get to the attraction itself. The only thing I don't like about the Indiana Jones queue, and I mean this is the only thing, is that I do not have any cell phone service once we are down there. And so I have to wait for everyone. I have to wait to text anybody when I'm out. But that being said, Indiana Jones is my number 3 pick.
All right. Are you ready for this? I haven't seen any of the movies either. And that's the thing that's going to get you and I in trouble. Brandon's going to get in trouble for not liking Soarin'. The two of us are going to get it for not seeing Indy. Anyway, love the selection. Had it in my top 5. It was going to be my final pick if it was still there, but I didn't really bank on it. I figured you were going to go out there and grab it. You talk about a lot of the stuff that's hidden in there. You know, the bamboo pole, the rope in the well, the decoder language on the walls. Remember when the attraction first opened? Christian doesn't remember when the attraction first opened because I think he was 1. But when they handed out the decoder cards so you could read everything on the walls, they did that for a while. That was really cool. You know, that was back in 1990. Was that 95? I think when it came out, 94, 95, somewhere in there. And all those things today, while they may not function exactly the same as they did when the attraction first opened, they still have somewhat of a functionality, and it's still great stories to tell every time you pass them. I remember, and this is a family story now, when Brandon was as small as he was able to climb through all the stalactites and the stalagmites in the cave area and go through all the little holes, and nobody knew where the heck he went. And he would, pop out the other side and scare the living daylights out of everybody. I'm so glad he doesn't fit through there anymore for that reason. But all those, you're outside, you're in the jungle, then you're inside a temple for a minute, and then you're in the cave, and then you're back in the temple, and then you're getting ready to board the Jeep. So many different elements. And again, another attraction that needed a lot of queue space because of how popular it was going to be when it opened. Still popular today. they operate the queue a little bit differently than they did from opening day. A lot of that has to do with Fast Pass, but still works well, in my opinion. The way they operate it and serves its purpose, part of the story. It's functional, and there's little things you can do in there. Hits all three of my criteria. Nice pick, Christian.
I love the pick, Christian. Great pick. I have it in my top 5 as well for many of the reasons that you and Erik have both thrown out there already. Erik, you mentioned the decoder through the petroglyphs on the wall throughout the queue. You actually, apparently, doing some further research into this, you can figure out what they say as the petroglyphs very much represent the English alphabet. And all of the vowels are painted red.
Ooh.
Did you know that?
I knew the first half of that. I don't think I realized the thing about the vowels. But yes, if you look at it very closely, you can probably read it without a decoder. I think I is actually 2 parts of a circle with a dot in the middle, so it doesn't look like the letter I. It looks like an I because temple forbidden I. But other than that, no, I did not know that one about the vowels.
Very, very interesting facts, and like you guys said, a lot of thought into this queue as well. One other thing I would like to point out is the copy of Life magazine that feature Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse on the cover that's located in Professor Jones's office throughout the queue. I always like those little nods to the Walt Disney Company. I'm a lifer, of course, but it was a nice little nod. Fun fact from mine and Erik's family's standpoint, our neighbor actually laid the concrete where the fire is underneath the bridge that you go over in that ride.
Wow. That's actually kind of cool.
Yeah. I forgot about that. That's true.
There you go. A little family, neighbor, personal connection. I'll take it. As we round out round 3, and now we are in the back half. Erik has to go to California Adventure one more time at least. We'll see what he goes with. Erik, we are in round 4.
All right, I debated between 2. I told you I had 2 on my backup list I had to go through here. And in my guesstimation, there's probably 3, maybe 4 more cues that I think are good enough for this list. One that I'm going to cross off here right out of the gate, and I really hope you pick this later, just because I don't think it needs to go on here. Incredicoaster, I don't think it's good enough to make the list. I don't think Little Mermaid is good enough to make the list. Too much outside, not enough inside. That leaves me with 2 other selections. It's between Toy Story Midway Mania and Monsters, Inc. Mike and Sully to the rescue. That's what I've narrowed it down to. And the tiebreaker for me is going to be how well they tied it into the movie. I'm going to take Monsters, Inc. Mike and Sully to the rescue with my number 4 pick because of the video clips that were made exclusively for the attraction. Walking through the offices at Monsters, Inc. It puts you in the movie. I went away from Toy Story. Mr. Potato Head is great. Once you get inside that little side room over there right before you collect your sunglasses, somehow the temperature is 6 billion degrees in there. It's not all that great. It's cool they have the instructions on how to play, quote-unquote play, the Midway games when you're on the attraction. But for me, Monsters, Inc., putting you in the movie itself before you board the attraction was what put it over the edge. So give me Monsters, Inc., Mike and Sully to the rescue at number 4.
I actually did have Monsters, Inc., Mike and Sully to the rescue down on my list of possibilities for that 5th pick, depending on what you went with. I think it's a great cue. I think the old owner of that building, right? Superstar Limo left Monsters, Inc. with very little to work with, and they did very well with what they had. Like you said, they did the personal little videos for the attraction. They make it very well done. Not my favorite, I'll be honest, and I can't remember the last time I went to the theme parks and immediately went to that attraction. But that being said, it does have a good queue. And it's a good way to round out your Disney California Adventure picks, Eric. What do you think, Brandon?
Yeah.
I'm going to agree with Christian on this one. Monsters Inc. is not really on really any of my lists to want to take some time out of my day and go over there. I do like your fun fact, Eric, though, about the clips being made specifically for the ride. And I do like the concept of them being used to put you in the movie. I did not know that. However, I've never been that enthralled in that ride. Maybe if I had a child, maybe something to the younger generation, I might think a little differently. However, for my type of style, I could leave it. I could leave it for right now.
Yeah, I mean, the ride isn't my favorite either. I'm not rushing over there to go on the ride, but the queue itself is a little bit more immersive than you would see anywhere else. The extended queue now, not so much. It's all outside. It's just a bunch of handrails and just a way to.
You do have a point there. Yes, you do have a point there. It is a little, for me, a little bit of an eyesore with all those handrails just sitting out there in the sun.
Yeah, and then the girders everywhere, the metal beams once you walk through the facade. But the queue itself, I think, like Christian said, it wasn't a bad job by them to have to use what they had to make it work. So that's where I'm going. Number 4, Christian. Where are you going? Number 4.
Oh, my number 4. Before we even go to number 4, I will say that would not have been my next Disney California Adventure pick, and I think there are at least 3 better queues than Monsters Inc. in California Adventure still. We will talk about that later, maybe in our honorable mentions. But to my 4th pick, every single kid thinks it's cool. Every single dad has always wanted to sit in the Millennium Falcon, and I'm going to be honest, it's one of my favorite queues in Disneyland Park now. Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run has a great queue. I mean, it is, you start off on that outdoor kind of area behind the Falcon, but you're literally behind the Falcon. You're looking up at it. You're still interested in it. By the time you go inside that building, you've got more weird things to look at on the walls and right in the middle of the giant winding queue. And then, of course, you actually get to sit in the room. Yeah, you get to drive the Millennium Falcon. Who cares? I get to take a picture in the booth. Like, that's my favorite part of the entire attraction. And so that is why Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run is my number 4 pick.
I'm looking at our top 4 picks so far, and I really do not envy what Brandon has to decide between, because these 2 lists are pretty darn good. Yeah, I had Millennium Falcon as my first alternate outside of my top 5. It was probably where I would have gone with my 5th pick had you not taken it. So that'll split us in the Star Wars category there. I think the first time anybody walks in there and sees it, it's a jaw-dropping moment for sure.
I like the pick. I did not have it in my top 5, specifically because it wasn't the queue that so much that got my attention. It was the ride itself and being in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon. And though you can see the back of the Millennium Falcon from the queue, I feel like that prop was not made for the queue as it was more of a photo op opportunity outside.
Oh, I will 100% agree with you on that.
But and that was me deciding if I should put that in my top 5, and that's kind of where my mindset was when I was debating on that.
Right.
I draw a lot of hate saying Star Wars is not one of my favorite movies. I'm more of a Marvel guy. I always have been, I always will be. But for this queue, Christian, I do agree with your pick right here, specifically for the detail that they have put inside of this queue. I am a button pusher, and you can put anything in a queue, and I'll touch it if it moves. If it doesn't work, I don't care. As long as it's pushable, if it's a lever, I'll pull it. Either which way, I'm there, and they were able to put some of those trinkets in there. I do enjoy the waiting area, though, inside of the cabin. That, I think, was a little bit more of the interactive part for me, because when they have that alarm go off, somebody in the room, of the 50 people in the room, probably now going to be 10, got to go find the button or lever. to make this annoying sound go away.
Yeah, I love that. I love that aspect where there's actually a button that has to be pushed, and if you push it, it actually stops something. Like, I love that. I love that aspect of it. It makes it very immersive. I mean, just looking down the hallway and like, it's iconic, and that's one of the greatest things that I think they did for all those Star Wars fans, even if you're not one, is that look down the hallway of like wondering what's around the corner in the Millennium Falcon. I think it's a great addition, and I would agree the Millennium Falcon itself over there is not designed for the queue, but I think they put the windows there on purpose. So, especially when you're inside. So, so I would say that. But Erik, Millennium Falcon. I mean, come on, we got to go on the Millennium Falcon. Pretty cool.
That is pretty awesome, and it's strange it fell this low in the draft, but I think it's right where it should be. If we're being honest. All right, my final pick now, and this one is very, very difficult. I had to go back to my criteria, right? It has to be very much a part of the story. The details got to be there, and it has to have great functionality. When I put those three things together, there's really only 2 attractions left in Disneyland for me that fall under all 3 of those criteria. One is Star Tours, and that one is near and dear to my heart, but I'm not going to go with Star Tours. It's a little short. There's a lot going on in there. Extended queue helps. It's one of the few that when they extend the queue, there's actually still something to look at when you're inside the building. That doesn't happen a ton when you extend a queue in either of those parks. But the one that is storyline all the way through, while you're waiting in line, it's air conditioned, it's completely inside. I got to go with Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin. I mean, if you think about it, when you walk in, you're seeing the entire story from the moment you step through that front door and weave your way through that 28-mile long queue. That is very deceiving because when you walk in, it looks like, oh, we're right here. And then you turn right and then you're gone for a while. There's animatronics. There's, BGM, background music in there. And it's just one of the more immersive queues that's in that entire park, if you really think about it. I mean, I'm not going to try to sway Christian's final pick, but there are so many where you would think, oh yeah, I love that ride, but you don't really stop and think about the queue itself. And Roger Rabbit isn't one of the most popular attractions on the planet. I think we can all agree on that. However, the queue itself is one of the more immersive in terms of you're looking around at everything the whole time you're in there. You might sit on something, you grab something, you look over here, there's an animatronic, you don't know where it's going to turn next. You're always peeking around the corner. Are we almost there? Are we almost there? It keeps you involved and makes the wait seem shorter. There's your functionality right there. Give me Roger Rabbit at number 5.
That's a really good pick. I was wondering if you were going to go Roger Rabbit. It didn't break my top 5, but I almost assumed it was going to break yours. It's a great attraction. Yeah, it's not my favorite ride, I'll be honest. But that queue is an attraction all in itself, so that is a very good pick. Brandon, what do you think of Erik's 5th and final pick?
I agree with Christian again. What is this? Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin didn't make my top 5. Didn't even make the list of the attractions that I wrote down before I even made my list. I completely forgot about that queue, like you said, Erik. Going back, you don't really think about the queue.
Hold on a minute real quick. It didn't make my top 5 either. I have to point that out because remember, Christian took a couple of mine that I had in my top 5. I had Roger listed at number 8. I had it at 8 out of my top 10 for transparency.
I had 13 attractions listed on my Disneyland list. That was not one of my 13.
Interesting.
And specifically for the reason you said earlier was you don't think about the queue. And I find that very interesting because you're absolutely correct. If we were doing a show about Disney World in Florida here, I would think Flight of Passage would obviously be one of your number 1 picks. Just because of the immersive aspect that they put into that and the visuals that they spread throughout the queue. Roger Rabbit, wow, I never even thought about it like that, but you're absolutely correct. Looking into the office doors, trying to peek in and all the shadows walking by. Absolutely. That's a steal, I think, at number 5.
Oh, I think you talked yourself into that one. All right, I like I'll take it. Christian, you got one more pick left.
Yeah, I do, and I'm going to go on a honest one. I'm going to say that this might sink me, but I'm all right with it because I think the detail that they put into the queue is phenomenal. I'm actually split between 2. They're both in Disney California Adventure. And both of them, I would say you do not spend as much time in the queue for as you would another attraction, especially one in the same land. I am split between the other 2 attractions that are on Route 66 in Radiator Springs, and I am going to go with Luigi's Rollickin' Roadsters as my number 5 pick because, and let me explain, every single one of those tires is extremely detailed that you see in that showroom. As soon as you're in my mind, I call it Luigi's backyard, but right where the attraction is, you are kind of in an Italian garden area. The planters are actually made of cement tires. I think the dedication to an attraction that is not the e-ticket in the area. And I would not even say that is the best or the second best attraction in the land, because I would say Mater's is probably a better attraction. It's so much to say that Luigi's had to be redone already once. The queue attention that they gave there is phenomenal. You can look inside Luigi's office. If you look at the wall of Luigi's office, you can see all the weird, crazy things that Lightning and Mater did together, what Luigi and Guido did together. They've got them documented. I think it's a great queue. And so that's why, and you know what? I will stand on this pick. I'm sorry if people don't like it. Luigi's Rollickin' Roadsters / the artist formerly known as Luigi's Flying Tires gets my pick for my 5th favorite queue at the Disneyland Resort.
I'll be honest, I don't dislike it. I had it just outside my top 10. I had it hovering around the 11 or 12 area for all those reasons you talked about. You know, we're all sports guys here. There's race car stuff. I mean,
yes.
Come on. You walk through there, you see the tires. I just so happen to be Italian. So, seeing all that stuff in there, you're right. That's not a bad pick to go to as we started to dwindle down selections, right? If you think about it, really, a lot of the e-ticket attractions, in my opinion anyway, don't have great queues because they know you're going to love this ride. We don't need to sell it to you. But everything else needs kind of a build-up. And a lot of the things I think that we picked did that. So now that we've finished this up, let's get Brandon's thoughts real quick. Brandon, your thought on Luigi's before we get to this final judgment.
Unbelievable. I wrote that ride down on my list of attractions to choose from DCA, not thinking any one of you would select this attraction. Kudos, Christian.
Thank you.
And I wrote it down for the simple fact that the details throughout that attraction, like you guys are talking about. And Eric, yes, being Italian, it kind of has a little bit of that biasness there, but he is my favorite character from Pixar movie Cars here. So I did not think that either one of you would choose this, and I'm kind of in a little bit of shock right now that you did. But
I would have if we had to go to a 6th pick. I was probably going to go there.
Well, and
okay.
And I'll tell you guys, it was a very close pick for me. I almost went Mater's Junkyard Jamboree on this, just because if you go to Mater's Junkyard Jamboree, you will find a bunch of scattered tires that are spelled incorrectly. Mater's Junkyard, you've got all the license plate that also nod to Imagineers, stuff like that. That'll go into my honorable mentions. But I just think Luigi's, for that very reason, my only issue with Luigi's is I wish you really spent more time in that inside queue, because there's so many details to look at, but most of the time you've walked all the way right through it, because let's be honest, the queue doesn't get that long all the time, except for on the really busy days of the park. You're usually just walking straight through the building, straight into the back. That's my only knock on it, but I think Luigi's deserves to be my number 5.
I don't know why you're dissuading him from that pick, but you go right on ahead and keep digging yourself in a hole. I'm fine with that.
Oh, jeez.
All right, so we've come to the conclusion of the draft. Our first draft of season 2 is in the books. Now, Brandon, before you give us your judgment, we want to know, was there anything in your top 5 that we did not select in either of our top 5?
Absolutely not.
All right, well, that was easy.
My list in order from 1 to 5 was Rise of the Resistance at number 1, Haunted Mansion, Holiday Mansion at number 2, Indiana Jones Adventure at number 3, Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout at number 4, and number 5 was Soarin'.
Oh my goodness.
Boy.
I'm not going to say anything about that until after you pass judgment, but
I was going to say I don't want to draw conclusions. Let's just get to it. Eric, run down the lists. Let's review for the folks at home before the inevitable happens. Oh, gee.
Hey, it's our first recap of season 2. Here we go. My picks at number 1, I took Rise of the Resistance. Number 2, Haunted Mansion. Number 3, Soarin'. Number 4, Monsters, Inc. Number 5, Roger Rabbit. Christian went Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout at number 1, Radiator Springs Racers at number 2, Indiana Jones at 3, Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run at 4, Luigi's Rollickin' Roadsters at number 5, Brandon Pessolano, who is the season 2 premiere victor, here to kick off the new year.
You guys had me deadlocked through 4 rounds. You really did. You had me split 2-2, so round 5 is really the deciding factor. When it came to Roger Rabbit's cartoon spin, I was thrown for a little bit of a whirl, not even having it written down on any of my lists. While on the other hand, I had Luigi's Rollickin' Roadsters on my list, but nowhere in my top 5. After further review...
he's drawing this out so much.
This guy.
Season 2, Episode 1 winner of Drafting the Magic... I gotta hand it over to Erik for Roger Rabbit's over Luigi's. Only because...
Okay, I was going to say, when you just read off your top 5, those were my top 5 in the exact same order. I had to shuffle them because of the rule that we had, because I had Rise, Mansion, Guardians, Soarin', Indy. I would have had Indy at 3 if there was no rule intact. But when you read all 5 of those in a row, I couldn't believe it. And this Christian probably can assume by the way we're talking about things. Brandon and I do things separately quite a bit, and then when we come together and review what we've done, it was like we did the exact same thing. It doesn't change a whole lot.
I will say the reason I'm selecting Roger Rabbit's over Luigi's, and this has nothing to do with what Christian said about it being small and like he wished he would spend more time. That was already my first thought between the selections when both were made.
Yeah.
Before he even explained that was his thought on it.
Before I previously set up my loss.
But I was deadlocked through 4 rounds. And originally I was going to say whoever took more of my top 5 picks, that's who I was going to go with. But then I said, that's not fair. So then it really came down to round 5, and I think it's got to go to Erik on this one. My apologies, Christian.
Oh, it's fine. I just remember that he started off season 1 winning, and then I demolished him with like a 5-game streak. So I'm just looking forward to whenever that happens, and I'm gonna have to move on from this emotionally. And
we did streaks of 2 wins in a row for like a month and a half.
Yeah, we did.
Before you wide open. Yeah.
Oh boy. But no, and here's the thing, and I've said this for just about every single draft that we've done. I like Erik's list. I think Erik's list is a fantastic list, and I would hope he probably thinks the same about mine. I mean, you really can't go wrong at Disney. And yes, there are some attractions like I won't mention any out loud to bash anything, but Jumpin' Jellyfish. That is it's not the best queue, right? But there are some queues that are amazing, and then there's some queues that are like Mater's Junkyard Jamboree, where, yeah, you're just outside under a shed, but they've themed it very well. Another honorable mention, I think Goofy's Sky School is great along the walls where they've got all of like Goofy's like, reasons he's allowed to fly a plane, which would never fly in any any aviation school ever. But like, stuff like that. I think Disney does a great job of working with the space that they have. And that's why that today was a good one to start off season 2, because the queues are such a big deal.
Well, a great first draft, Christian. I think we did what we needed to do. By the way, note the only 2 attraction queues I have never stepped foot in are Jumpin' Jellyfish and the Silly Symphony Swings, but you can see them all in their entirety when you're standing close by.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that was it for me. But Brandon, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Thanks for kicking off our new season.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it. Hopefully I'll be back soon.
Yes, I hope you'll be back soon too. Maybe, you know what? No, you chose Erik. I don't. Anyway, just kidding. I hope all of our guests come back soon. But I'm just saying this was filed under protest before it even began, and it is going to the committee, which actually doesn't exist. So I'm just going to take the loss and be done.
I appreciate the time, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure. It's been a lot of fun.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Have a great one, guys.
You too.
Well, here we go again. Looks like history is repeating itself. I won to kick off last season. I win to kick off this season. I just have to avoid the same fate that I ended up with after 20 episodes last year.
Yeah, congratulations! You got an early win, and we'll see. We'll see if if you win too, and then I start winning too, we're gonna have an issue. But time will have to tell on that one. But that being said, I thought this was a great first show. I thought that Brandon was being fair, despite him having your last name and definitely choosing you just because of your blood. No, I'm kidding. It's still under protest. We'll see if the league, honors that. But no, I thought it was great. I think the cues, as I said to Brandon at the beginning of the show, or at the beginning of the interview, I think that the queues at Disneyland get a bad rap. I mean, you go to Walt Disney World, there's definitely a difference in the queue between Pirates of the Caribbean there and Pirates of the Caribbean here, right? It was built later. It was built with the idea of you need to be inside because there's going to be rain and hurricanes and crazy chaos going on. But I do think that the queues at the Disneyland Resort, there are a number of good ones. And I don't have a problem with any of the ones on our list. I think that our list is pretty good. I mean, you guys made a good point about Radiator Springs Racers. I still think it's a cool queue, but I get your point on it. There's a lot of detail, but it's nothing like the ride. But that being said, I think that our list is a really good list of queues.
Well, you mentioned Disney World. Out here, everything is smaller because they really didn't know what to expect. So when you get more space and a bigger budget, of course, Disney World is going to have better queues. But then when you look at the new queues that have been built or refurbished here in California, there is a lot more immersion and there is a lot more detail. And you want to keep people entertained. There's more people on the planet now than there were back in 1955. So you're going to want to make sure they're entertained because they're going to be waiting for a while. And Fast Pass came along and, had a bit of an unintended consequence of making the standby queues a little bit longer of a wait. So with that, you got to give people something to look at if they're waiting for 45 to an hour or sometimes even longer. So, there's a lot that do a good job of that. And there's a lot that don't. And I think we picked, from my opinion, with the exception of Racers, I think the other 9 do deserve to be in the top 10. And it was a good show. It was a tough decision in the end. I'm glad it came out on the front end. But, I think the more important thing is it's a new year. We're back at it. New logo. And I think our topics this year have a little bit more variety than they did last year. Last year was getting our feet wet, figuring out how we're going to do this. We're a little seasoned now. And I'm looking forward to the next 19 episodes we have left in season 2.
Yeah, we talked about it in the season premiere, or the series premiere in a way now, the podcast premiere way back when, that, people would look at this kind of a podcast and go, oh, you probably don't have many topics you can do. But when you really look at it, there's a lot of different things to do. And we've taken some of last year's favorite topics and applied them to different theme parks, applied them to different resorts. And, you're going to see some of those kind of topics, but with a different spin, focusing on a different park or whatever it might be. So I'm really excited. I think I agree. Our list of topics this year are pretty good.
We didn't throw it together in 5 minutes. We brainstormed and figured out what we were going to do throughout the season. So we're not going to reveal them all at once, but we're going to give you a topic teaser at the end of every episode to let you know what's coming up next. And from what I understand, Christian, you're going to have the first pick in the next episode. So can we get a little bit of a topic teaser, maybe?
Yeah, we can, and this is something I'm really excited about. We have had this long-standing, and by long-standing I mean officially a season and one episode, a long-standing tradition of having some rule that we have to abide by. Well, next week there will be no rules, because with this topic there is no rules. You enjoy it as much as you humanly can. We'll leave it at that. But you can probably guess there might be some food involved. I'm so excited for episode 2 this year.
Follow us on social media at Drafting the Magic on Instagram and on Facebook. On Twitter, we're at Drafting Magic. We're going to have those topic teases coming out. And maybe you can try to figure out by the photo that Christian comes up with what the topic is going to be the following week. You did a good job with that last season, by the way.
Thank you. I had a lot of fun with it. I hope everybody else gets to enjoy them. And yeah, I'm coming back. We are going to, in my opinion, have the first ever 1-to-1 record in this little competition show of ours, because I'm going to win next week. I'm not going on another losing streak to start this thing off.
I'm just going to keep it zipped up. I'm not going to say a word. We'll talk to you next time.